Latch the windows, lock the doors, and put the kids to bed. It's time for another episode of
Tales from the Garage.
Hey guys, it's been a while. I'm back. Maybe the last time for this year in the garage. It's mid-November. Had a weird, as typical for the last few years, I guess. Temperatures are really weird. I love autumn. Love Halloween, so I've been a bit bummed out that Halloween ended, but it was really weird. We didn't get the autumn weather until about 2 weeks into October. So it was way too warm, didn't feel like autumn, didn't feel like Halloween until Halloween was, 2 weeks away, my big holiday, and really the only one I care to celebrate. So for me, even though you don't see it around, people have taken the Halloween decorations down. I haven't. They're still behind me. The Halloween lights are on. My Halloween candle, my little Halloween candle is lit back there. It probably just looks like a light, but that's an actual candle. And I'm still trying to celebrate Halloween, but it's tough because no one else is. So, the weather has been funky. So finally, mid-October, it started getting slightly autumn-like, and almost exactly a month ago now, mid-October. It's now mid-November. And we've had winter here now. It's ridiculous. There hasn't been autumn, and we're getting a snowfall tomorrow. Which is just ridiculous. Way too early for that. And I like winter. Well, I prefer autumn. Yeah, I don't hate winter like a lot of people do, though. Now that I'm getting old, the cold has started to bother me in the last few years. So. There's a couple things been going on with, this computer semi-working and semi-not working as far as recording videos go. Every time I come out here to record a video, it's really hit or miss. Literally in the same day, I could try recording something. I'll do a test video for a couple minutes, and that'll come out fine. And then I'll record an actual video, and it won't come out. Just blank, empty, no file there when I'm done recording. So, I never know until after I hit end record whether or not it came out. So it's really an iffy thing, and I can record a couple times when I recorded like 45-minute videos, which should teach me a lesson, and they didn't come out, and then I had to go redo them all over again. So I'm here. It would be nice if we got an abnormally warm spell for autumn, so I can come out here again, because this is really my preferred space to do videos. No windows, no clocks. This is a world unto itself. And as you know, the last few things I did were basically videos of me playing, improvising some electronic guitar stuff out here, which is also my preferred place to do it. But it's not temperature controlled, so it doesn't look like I'll be doing much more playing, though. I've got all the bits and pieces of all this from the things I recorded. My volume pedals for my guitar are out here, and things like that are still out here from when I did the videos before Halloween. So, I had a couple ideas for video. I've really kind of run out of ideas for videos. Apart from, me jamming or something. And a couple folks reminded me, well, you were going to do a video on box sets and all that, which was a good idea, and I will. But since I could do those inside, and pretty much I'm going to have at least 5 months, the next 5 months of having to do videos inside, I wanted to save those kind of things can be done inside when the random vinyl pulls can't be, because the vinyls... All my vinyl isn't out here, but the various things that I select at random are. And the way they're set up inside, they're not on a shelf or anything, so I have them on the floor that I flip through them, so it wouldn't be random. I would know what I was choosing before I chose it. So I thought, well, I haven't done a random vinyl pull for a while. I'll do that, for the last time, possibly this year. If we get a warm spell, maybe I'll do another one. It's been a while since I did this, though, so I'm just going to go and do one. I don't think I have this on CD yet, which is possibly a sin. One of my favorites. People in the world, musicians, Terry Riley, the Descending Moonshine Dervishes. Terry Riley wrote some liner notes on the back here that he wrote in Paris on November 9th, 1975. This is, Jesus, boy, it's been a long time since I heard this. This is a live concert. Recorded November 29th, 1975, at a music festival in Berlin. Naturally, it would be Berlin because the Europeans appreciate this kind of music much more than us Americans do. For an album, for a vinyl album, this is pretty long. It's just two long pieces, or actually, it's one long piece split up into two sections, two sides. Part 1 is 28 minutes and 18 seconds. Part 2, which is the second side, is 24 minutes and 14 seconds. So it's a nice, good length. This came out on the Cuck label. Celestial Harmonies distributed it at the time. I bought this new. It's still in the shrink, actually. I just slit the side so I could get in here, get the album out. And I believe this is tuned in just intonation. This is Terry Riley at his electric organ, which is my favorite stuff. I love to hear him play organ. So it's a live thing, no pre-recorded material, but I guess there's a delay on here. Boy, it's been a long time since I heard this. I have not picked up the CD. I think the reason I haven't picked up the CD is it's a fairly expensive. This and another album of his are put on a double CD set that's kind of expensive. I don't know why they paired these two albums together that they did, because they're only roughly within the same time frame, not really related to one another. So I still haven't gotten this on CD, and this is probably my second or third favorite Terry Riley album, to be honest. It's a really good one. So I don't have much more to say about it. It's certainly trance-inducing. It's one thing that if you didn't have to flip over the sides, you'd have, 50-something minutes, over 50 minutes of pure music without any breaks. Terry Riley doing his trancey thing, which I love. I love. Excellent album. Good job, boy. It's weird because I forgot I even had that one. Here's it. This is, wow. 2 pulls and no ECMs yet. I'm going to try to sell this one because I love this so much. I bought this. This is Warren Marsh, who was a saxophone player. Primarily tenor sax, I guess. I thought he played other saxes too. This is the first album I ever bought by him. He's a very laid-back saxophone player. He was born in 1927. He passed away a number of years ago. And if I'm not mistaken, he actually passed away on stage while performing. He collapsed. Kind of sad. Kind of like I always thought that would make a great movie, his life, in a way, even though he's not that well known. He's a follower of Lenny Tristano, the piano player. If you're familiar with Lenny, you might get an idea of what Warren's style was. He wasn't, one of these wild soloists like a John Coltrane type. He was more restrained. I wouldn't necessarily say like in the cool jazz mode, but I might compare him to Stan Getz stylistically, maybe, in terms of the way he played. He never blew it hard and went into the honking thing. And I didn't know anything about him. I remember buying this in New York City, and I was on a rare trek to go pick out records. This is before the CD age. This would have been about 1981 or 82 that I bought this. And this is a record of from two different sessions. And oddly enough, I've got a handful of Warren Marsh things that I bought on CD since. I wouldn't say I forgot about him, but I just never got back to him until recent years. And I bought a couple albums of his. And unfortunately, this specific one isn't available. It's a bit of a compilation of previously unreleased tracks from two different sessions, one from 77 and one from 79. And I guess being that it was kind of a compilation, they didn't, I think maybe in Japan they reissued it in this format. Fairly short album at only 30-something minutes, which may be why it didn't get released in this format. I don't know, a couple of the tracks ended up on a different CD of his, but then a couple others just I never found available on CD except for the Japanese CD of it. So I would, how do I describe? If you're familiar with the Stan Getz school of a bit more laid back blowing as a saxophone player and improvising, you might get the basic idea of Warren Marsh. And this was a blind buy, and I was buying a lot of ECM at the time. And I remember on this trip was the same trip that I bought my Adelhard Reudinger ECM import album. I remember that. And I bought a whole crap load of ECM albums that day, and some a bunch of imports too. And I wanted to also kind of pick up something a little bit more mainstream jazz, because I was also, getting into that at the time. I don't think I'd ever even heard of Warren Marsh. The album just looked interesting to me, and what I liked about it is I'd heard of the musicians, Sam Jones on bass on this, Roy Haynes on drums, and Sal Mosca on piano. Sal Mosca's not as well known, but he was somebody that was very tight with Warren Marsh and accompanied him quite a bit. And I think these are both recorded in New York. Mount Vernon, New York. Probably not that far from here, I think. Side 1 recorded Sal Mosca's studio in Mount Vernon, New York. I don't think Sal Mosca's alive anymore. And side 2 was recorded in concert. So side 2, which only has 2 tracks of about 15 minutes in length total, is a quartet with Sal Mosca on piano and Sam Jones on bass and Roy Haynes on drums. They do list the instruments. So it's a fairly standard, very well recorded. And I don't know why they only released 15 minutes of the concert. Obviously, it was longer than that. Very nice quartet, saxophone, piano, bass, and drums, all acoustic. But I guess the real draw for me was the variety on here, because side 2, side 2 was recorded in April of 77. Side 1, which was recorded at Sal Mosca's studio in New York, was recorded in August 1979. And that is just piano and saxophone duets. That might be the thing that made me pick this up, because I like the idea of, half of the album has a rhythm section, half is a little more heady with just piano and tenor saxophone to it, and fairly well recorded, which I really, really like. I dug this album a lot. I think it's one of those scenarios where you want to like an album, you almost, not that there's nothing to dislike about it, but it's like, I'm going to try this. I think that this, may have been one of the few mainstream jazz albums that I bought on this trip, amongst a stack of ECM imports and things that are a bit more out there. And I've always dug this. I've only been able to get, there's 6 tracks total, 4 piano saxophone duets and the other two the live things with the quartet. I may have 4 of the tracks actually spread out on other CDs of Warren Marsh's, but I don't have all 6 because I think a couple of the tracks were only available on the Japanese reissue of the CD, which, as you know, Japanese reissues are very expensive, and for an album that runs maybe 30 minutes, you know, you don't exactly get value for the dollar, even though I love this album. Try to get close to the... Nice liner notes. I like the cover. I really dig this album, and I would like to be able to recreate it. It's fun because I got 4 of the 6 tracks on CD, spread out I think over 2 different CDs, if I'm not mistaken. But I just can't get those last 2 tracks without going the Japanese route. And who knows? Because it was years ago that the Japanese CD of that was in print, and I don't even know if it's still in print. And it was expensive when it was in print. Okay, gonna do another one. Oh, it's not an ECM. Here's another funny one. I remember buying this in the record store. Again, early 80s, vinyl era, before the CDs came out. This was really independent album, and I really dug this. It gets a bit into the rock, almost progressive rock at times, because there's a drum machine on here. Early drum machine kind of plays an aggressive beat at one point. But apart from those sections, most of it is not aggressive, fairly acoustic guitar oriented. I don't know if it's Stephen or Stephen Caudel, Wine Dark Sea. This is a great album. I can remember the day I drove to, it was probably one of the further record stores that I would drive to on my days off. And I would make a trip to this particular mall, which had an import record store in there. This wasn't an import, but I went to that one store because they did have imports and unusual things. And I looked at the cover. It looked interesting. When did this come out? No date. If there's some printing that's so small I can't read it, but I don't know that the date is actually among there. So let me look at the album. I want to... 86. 86, that's weird. I was buying CDs by that point. So this again, maybe one of the last vinyl LPs I bought in the CD era, because I know I started buying CDs around 85, but it also depends on what store stock was there. And this I did not see on CD, certainly. I probably would have bought it on CD. It's a sweet. One of the things I liked about it is I noticed the cover. I think they stuck it in the New Age section because there was a New Age section at this point. I took a look at it. The cover caught my eye. Turned it around and saw that when I saw that all the music was written and entirely played by this Stephen Caudel, I had to have it because that's my thing. I'm a solo album guy. I love a person that goes into the studio and overdubs and plays all the parts themselves without assistance from anybody else. So when I saw that this was one of those albums, I had to go for it, and I wasn't disappointed. Though the part that a drum machine comes in at one part is a little. I don't know if it was necessary because it flows very nicely before and after that. But so I saw that. I saw that he's primarily a guitarist. He plays guitars, keyboards, and bass on there. So that was a something that interested me. And the entire album is just this one piece split up into 2 sides. Wine Dark Sea Part 1 and Wine Dark Sea Part 2. Each about 20-something minutes long. And I like those long suites, and there's multiple parts, each side, may have at least 3 different noticeable sections to them. And this was one I really dug at the time. It starts off very bright and cheery with a lot of overdubbed classical guitars, nylon string guitars, and acoustic guitars. There's electric guitar on here as well, but he always creates this very nice bed of the acoustic guitars. And I, of course, I didn't know I was going to pick this album out. But I wonder if this isn't something that may have turned up on YouTube. I hope it is, because it was so kind of obscure and unknown. And by the time I went seeking a CD of it, it was out of print. But I want to say I think I do have this on CD. I think I ended up buying a used copy. I don't really like buying used CDs, but at the time I was looking for it. I seem to recall that was the only option, and I think I did finally get this on CD. Or it's possible somebody that I don't even remember who, years ago, may have dubbed me a copy. I think they did, from their CD version of it, because it was impossible to get at the time on CD. And I wanted it without the vinyl noise. There's quiet sections on here. If you're, like I said, slightly proggy, but, with all those beds of acoustic guitars, it could sound a bit like, at times in the mellower times, maybe like something Anthony Phillips would have done. And then the aggressive times is maybe a bit more aggressively prog rock almost at times, without being too intense for too long. Some electric guitar in a slightly, maybe like a slightly almost like Steve Hackett vein, for maybe some brief guitar solo things. But when it starts off, it always sounds to me like a very cheery, like a Saturday morning kind of sound when it starts. The drums don't kick in till well into the piece. And it's actually a bright, cheery, pretty, sun's dawning kind of sound when the album starts off. And as it gets deeper, you get the aggression with the drum machine. Maybe slightly dated sounding, but it's fairly well recorded. I think this was one of the few albums he recorded. It was totally independent. I think I only saw one other album by him. So I'm curious as to who he was, where he is now, what he's doing. But Stefan Caudel, Caudel, Wine Dark Sea. This would be one that would be good. Folks, try to listen to this if you can. If this is up on YouTube, and of course, if I knew who was going to pick it out, I would look to see if it is on YouTube. It's running to that point that I don't even know if this is going to record or not with this computer, but I'm going to do one more anyway. Now, here's a coinky-dink. No ECM recordings. And another Terry Riley. Terry Riley, it's funny, I bought this online. It's a Terry Riley soundtrack album. It's got 2 pieces that run about 18 minutes on each side. And I'm pretty sure it's just a single track on each side. Supposedly, this is a film soundtrack, hence the title, of a film I've never heard of, and of course probably never even, certainly wasn't dubbed or subtitled. I don't think it ever played over in America. So I didn't know about it. And my favorite album, as you may know if you've watched my past videos of Terry Riley, is the soundtrack to a kind of sci-fi movie, kind of mystery sci-fi movie called Lifespan, which was recorded about 1975. And I didn't know about this recording for many, many, many years. This film soundtrack predated Lifespan, which is my favorite Riley album. This was recorded in March and April of 1972 as a film soundtrack, but it's kind of weird because film soundtracks usually are made up of shorter tracks, and here you have two 18 plus minute tracks. So I don't know if they just used various sections of the music, whether Riley recorded it, I'm sure, the way as you hear it, and just the filmmakers would maybe pick out chunks of the sections of the two pieces that they wanted to play. Not as good as Lifespan, but nothing is as good as Lifespan. But I found out about this album only in the early 2000s, I think, that it had even existed. And at that point, I didn't really want to buy vinyl anymore, but this was only available on vinyl. And seeing as it was a film soundtrack from the early 70s, and my very favorite Terry Riley recording was a film soundtrack from the mid-70s, I'm like, I had to have this, knowing that this would be primarily an organ-based album. And there is a substantial amount of saxophone on here as well, I think on the second track. And strangely enough, not long after I purchased this, I want to say within less than a year, I really didn't want to buy vinyl anymore. My turntable already at that point was, iffy. And just I knew the vinyl would be a little bit noisier than a CD. And, but I took it and I transferred it into my computer so I could listen to it on my computer and burn it onto a CDR disc. Months after that, what comes out on CD, but a combination of the Lifespan album, which also hadn't been released on CD at that point, which I had on LP forever, and this album combined on one. They're both very short albums. Well, this one's 30, maybe 36, 37 minutes, but the Lifespan album was about 31 minutes, so very easily both albums fit on a CD, which doesn't necessarily mean a record company is going to do that, but they did, and they stuck these two albums together on CD, so I didn't really need to get this. But very, very good album. I'd still put it, maybe sixth or seventh or so on my favorite Terry Riley albums. But like I said, not as good as the Lifespan album, but then again, nothing is. But what a hell of a value it is to buy that CD, which last I checked, which was less than a year ago, the Lifespan album on CD paired with this album is still available, still in print and available at very reasonable, regular, normal CD prices. So, okay, I'm almost gone a half hour. I don't know if this is going to come out. I picked 4 albums. Incredibly, none of them are ECMs this time. This could be my last time out here for this year. I'll be doing videos inside the condo. But I don't know. If we get a warm spell, which you never know. Who knows? We might get 80 degrees in December the way things are going. I'll come out here again and do it, but this may be it. This may be it for 2018 or whatever year it is. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. I'm glad I was able to come out here and do this one more time, and hopefully I will get into a rhythm of making videos again. It's funny because previously I was doing so many that I would have to hold them back. There's a point when I was doing like 3 or 4 a week, or I wanted to do 3 or 4 a week, and I'm like, well, that's just too many. And I had to stop myself. Then Halloween ends, and I kind of got down, and it was like, then all of a sudden it just became easy not to do them. The longer you go without doing them, the easier it gets to not do them. So here's to me getting back into the mode. Probably the next time you'll see me, probably will be inside, I'm guessing. And hope everybody's doing well, enjoying the season, whatever the temperatures are for you out there. And I'll be back at some point, so take care. Tune in next time for more
Tales from the Garage.